It's morning again. It keeps happening. I read something about like the sun is going to expand over, hundreds of billions of years, and then that'll be it for the Earth. So it's another thing I don't have to worry about. Um, we got some coherence going here. The other day I was talking about the birds, Aristophanes and Alfred Hitchcock, and here's the bird whispers. I was walking down Avenue A one day, and there were two tourists on an outside cafe, and one of the men saw my shirt and he said, what is a bird whisperer? I said, I don't know. He said, well, do you whisper to birds? I said, I don't even talk to people. And they laughed, and I kept moving. So here's the coherence. Mr. Brain, I have one, you have one, I think everyone has a brain, even babies who are born, some of them are born without them, but that doesn't happen very often. I always, like, the brain is this sort of jukebox that just does all kinds of stuff on its own. And the trouble with telling a story is that if a story is true, particularly, it's related to a million other stories, because if it's my story, there's all kinds of stuff that happened before and after. So it's really hard to stay on track. And if you're trying to communicate the story, you have to be responsible for that. And there's all this subtext, because every little thing you bring up could be talked about too. So I'm going to try to tell you a little story without wandering off into, wherever. So I had a very bizarre thing happen to me in the early 80s. I had been represented by a couple of galleries and doing pretty well, and I guess I ran out of the series that I'd been working on, and I really changed ideas, and when the gallery people showed up, they were very upset, and they didn't understand what I was doing. And I said, well, I was done my other concepts, and I'm working on some new stuff. And one of them said, well, I can't handle this. I said, well, why? She said, well, you're recognized for something, and the people recognize what that is. And I said, well, so what are you telling me? And she said, well, we can't show this. And I said, oh, what does that mean? She said, well, just go back to your other work, and we'll have your show, because they had me contracted for 2 shows over 3 years. And I said, I can't do that. I'm done. So she canceled. That was it. Gone. So that was exciting, because I went from doing pretty well to what does a painter do when he doesn't have any backing? So that led to survival jobs. And in New York, there's this fantastic reality, or at least there was, of survival jobs, so that all kinds of artists and musicians and writers and actors and dancers were working at survival jobs. And one of those survival jobs was proofreading. And proofreading means you go into a law firm, you sit down with another proofreader, one of them reads, the other one checks, you go back and forth, and you proofread documents so that the law firm can do something terrible in a better way, because you got to have proofreaders. And it paid very well. And I did. I learned how to proofread, and the galleries told me that all I had to do was just have my show. And my father even called me. I never talked to my father, and he calls me on the phone. My son, they're coming to kill you. You have to. I said, Dad, who's coming to kill me? Ach, don't be a wise guy. You must show. I said, Dad, no one's coming to kill me. Okay, so I learned how to proofread, and I met a lot of amazing creative people. Truly. Really. One night, I'm proofreading with a fellow I'd become friends with. He was a writer and from a very literary background. And we were alone in a very big room in the middle of an incredibly freezing cold, blistery, windy, gusty, snowy, shitty night in New York. I think it's like February. Just like a Simon and Garfunkel song. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're drinking coffee. We're eating pizza. We're proofreading, and there's a knock on the window. Now, if you know anything about upper floor skyscrapers, they have these windows that they don't even open, or they do, but some of them don't even open. And I looked at my friend. I'm not using names unless someone's dead, because I don't want to get sued or shot. I looked at my friend and I'm like, there was a knock on the window. He said, yeah. I go over there and there's somebody outside the window, and we're up there on the 20th something floor. I open the window and this man in a harness steps in and he says, "Yeah, cold, lose window, look not find. Come in, please." I said, well, of course. He comes in. He's half frozen. We give him a coffee or tea. He put his hands around the cup. He drank it. He calmed down. And he barely spoke any English. And he was obviously a window washer. And he's a window washer at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the winter with a blistering, blowing snow. Anyway. And then he says, "Okay, thank you." And he goes back out the window. And he says, "You close window." And I look at my friend and he says, "Yeah, you better close it." I close the window. And we sat back down and we kept proofreading. That's the story.